you got to make friends with that fear. So, get in the car.
What the hell? It's a goddamn.
Spend too much more time on him, really anymore. But to go on, this is where we may have our first disagreement. So I want to hear yours first. Who is your number 5 wide receiver?
My number 5 is your boy, Garrett Wilson.
What? Oh my gosh, dude! 1 through 5, we all.
Did you really?
Yes.
So I thought
That's
you might.
never gonna happen again. Huh?
Wow, y'all don't know. I mean, listen, for y'all out
We
there,
don't
y'all
agree very often.
We don't agree, and we should. I mean, don't tell him. But I love the guy. But we talk so much shit to each other, right? And for us to finally agree, not on just like one ranking. Well, so the first two are easy: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. But to agree on the 3 after that is absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
well,
like it never happens.
It's like Paul Rudd. Look at us.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Not me. Yeah. No, I mean, we've agreed on some stuff, but obviously it's the obvious things like Justin Jefferson being number 1. Like no one's gonna argue that. Yes, maybe if you have some Cooper Kupp truthers out there, but both of us think that Justin Jefferson is the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Things like
and so if I'm being honest, do I think that there's other receivers that could make a case for being number 5? Sure. Like if you argued with me about Jalen Waddle, even Amon-Ra, like I'm not going to argue overly hard with you. But what I will say is that he was elite last year. He just had no one to throw him the
exactly. He flashed superstar potential.
I mean, Mike White really was his best connection. Really? I mean, we're not even going to talk about Mr. Cougar.
Chris Streveler at one point, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Dude, so at the end of the day, he still put up what 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receiver 1 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
AJ
Brown, just for reference, sorry to interrupt you, but just to stay on that, AJ Brown had 6 wide receiver 1s, and I'm talking about in a 12-team league. I know we're playing in a 10, but I usually do my rankings off at 12. So AJ Brown had 6 wide receiver 1 weeks, and CeeDee Lamb had 7. I think we would all agree that they both have better quarterbacks and better offenses than the Jets had last year, right? So, and also part of my ranking, making him number 5, is not only that Aaron Rodgers is going there next year. So I think he's got the elite upside. But have you noticed how the Jets are absolutely committed to fixing their fuck up with Zach Wilson? Yeah. And I love that. Like, when the Cardinals drafted,
as much as you can.
Yeah, when they drafted your boy that they tried to compare to Aaron Rodgers with his intelligence, and Josh Rosen. Yeah, no, wasn't the ticket. They were like, I'm going to go with Kyler Murray because I'm intelligent, right? So they're making a decision. They're going with Aaron Rodgers. Who knows how it's going to be, but we all know it's an upgrade.
Right.
Hopefully Zach Wilson, for their sake, learns something from them, from Aaron, and can make the transition to being a good quarterback. But if not, I mean, they still seem committed to actually getting him a legitimate quarterback. They know the weapons that they have.
Right. So that's one thing that you have to give the Jets kudos for, is they saw their window and they're like, we have to take advantage of this. It came quicker than they thought it would. They weren't expecting to be as good as they were, or they are actually. So now they're kudos to them. I wish more franchises would do that. Attack your window. Don't try to continue to put it off. But one of the things that I did want to ask you, though, and you Jets fans, you may honestly want to close your ears on this one, or just, kind of skip past for the next 2 minutes or so. But in a world where Aaron Rodgers doesn't end up a Jet, does Garrett Wilson change for you? Like, is he no longer your wide receiver 5?
I mean, to be honest, if it's Zach Wilson, he drops for me.
Well, I don't think Zach Wilson would even be in consideration. I think they would draft someone, they would do whatever they have, maybe
right.
for Lamar.
But I'm saying, so if it was Zach Wilson, I think he dropped. But if I think if they were to get any other competent quarterback, I mean, I might. I mean, depending on Tua's health, I might have Waddle ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what happens in Detroit, I might have Amon-Ra up there. But I mean, even Amon-Ra, like I'm shaky on him. I am trying to trade for him.
Jameson guy.
2 of our leagues, but Jameson, man, and we talked about it earlier about our trade. I just think he's going to come out and be elite. I mean, am I going to bet that Jameson has more yards than Amon-Ra next year? No, because he's the big play guy. I think he's going to be more of the 60, 70 catches for like 1,100 yards.
I think that's an interesting conversation, honestly, because I mean, they're very different types of players, but they can mesh very well. I think it is very possible for Jameson to have more yards than Amon-Ra. I won't bet on it just because it's basically his rookie year,
Yeah.
But by year 2, maybe year 3, I would be able to make that bet if obviously they're still together because he has to re-sign with the Lions. The business comes along, but
I could see Amon-Ra having like 12 or 1,300 yards and Jameson having 1,000. You know what I mean?
Amon-Ra, and I have Amon-Ra and Jay Cutler 6 that I think he could still. He wouldn't be in my top 5. I didn't even put him down for my honorable mentions, but I think he is a very interesting. No, I mean I love him, but I think he's a very interesting guy. But I think Jameson, he is a very target-heavy player. Amon-Ra, that is. I think Jameson will steal some of those targets. He's not going to be a 150 to target guy. Jameson,
no.
He's more like we've talked about this. I think he's a Mike Wallace, Deshaun Jackson mold. He's bigger than Deshaun Jackson, which is why I say Mike Wallace, but he's a little skinnier than Mike Wallace, but he's just as electric and fast as Deshaun Jackson.
Man. Even you saw last year with one of his touchdowns that got called back. I mean, he's scary, dude.
Yeah. And we've seen this before with Aaron Rodgers. Almost dropped my phone. Sorry, guys. And that's where I got all my notes. But one of the things that I wanted to say, and we've seen this before, is Aaron Rodgers loves to target his favorite players. Like he's going to force feed him. He did it with Devontae Adams. He even did it to an extent with Alan Lazard, who's not that level of talent, So if you have a guy and he trusts you, Aaron Rodgers, that is, he's going to force feed you. And he is obviously one of the best arm talents that we've ever seen in NFL history. So he is going to be able to force feed any player he wants and still give them good passes. And speaking of good passes, I have written down somewhere in here that
I think Alan Lazard is the only thing that made me hesitate for a moment because we know how much Aaron loves Alan Lazard. You know what I mean?
Right. True. But one of the things, I mean, Alan Lazard isn't going to overtake Garrett.
No. But I'm just saying, as far as eating into his target share.
I get that. Yeah. But he will get his. But Alan Lazard, I mean, Aaron Rodgers knows who the alpha is going to be. And this goes to what I was going to say is that only flaw that you could really say that he has right now, because when you watch his game, and this is one thing that I love, and I just love watching film on him because he's so fun to watch, honestly. And by the way, drop down in the comments if you guys want to see us maybe break down some film. We can airplay it or whatever onto the screen, and we'll just kind of break it down, look at some of our players
too. Tell us why we're wrong. Tell us why we're right. Tell us what you love.
Obviously, just create some content. I mean, create some arguments in the comments. I want to see that. We like to interact with you guys. We try to interact with every single one. I think we're doing a pretty good job at that. But what I wanted to really say, go ahead.
No. I was going to say shout out to you for running the social media on it.
Of course, because I'm the only one who cares. But no, what I wanted to say is that really he is such a fun player to watch, but his only flaw, I would say, that when I've watched his film is that he's not a go up and get you type of guy like AJ Brown. Now, looking at his contested catch rate was 35%, and I didn't look at his off-target percentage throws, but I imagine it was pretty high, honestly. up there with like maybe like a Garrett, I mean, not a Garrett, Kyle Pitts, who did have the highest percentage of off-target throws in the NFL last year. But one of the things that I do love about Garrett Wilson is that he honestly just has one of my favorite traits is that he's absolutely deadly out of his break. Like if you've ever watched any of his film, his footwork, his elusiveness, his explosion outside of his release is just incredible. And honestly, Tank Dell, like that video that's been going around the Twitter with that little crazy release that he has against, I don't know the cornerback that he's playing, but it was at the Senior Bowl. And I remember watching that play going like, whew, that was nasty. Garrett Wilson has a lot of stuff like that too. He has these little crazy footwork, cross-ups outside of his release to be able to get off the jam, which is why his frame has never really been an issue for him.
Right.
And one thing that I also really love is that he's a very smart player too. The reason he necessarily doesn't have to be that good at contested catches is because he is so good at stacking the hips of the DBs. Because he's so good at getting off of his release, he's able to get behind and if you don't know what that means for any of you, like, I guess, newbies, but if you're watching, honestly, a football podcast at this time of the year, you're not a football newbie.
Probably, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about by stacking your hips, meaning that you're able to get directly behind your DB and you make his angle to the football so much harder. So it prevents a lot of those contested catches that you don't have to.
Over the shoulder, you put yourself.
Exactly. It gives your quarterback leverage to where you can do the over the shoulder, the behind the or with the back shoulder catch, whatever, all those different types of options. But he's just so elite, and I would say that maybe if Aaron Rodgers doesn't go, he wouldn't be my top 5. I would maybe drop him to 6 or 7, which is where I kind of originally had him from my last videos before we had the Aaron Rodgers news. But man, he is so good. He's so fun to watch, and he's just going to have a very long success.
Shout out to Brian Hartline, longtime NFL player, and the wide receiver.
Yeah, I watched that video too.
Dude, so did you hear something interesting that he said, though? He said, on Bussin' with the Boys, shout out to them, too, Taylor Lewan. The linebacker's name, I think he's cool as shit, but I'm blanking on his name right now. Anyway, so Brian Hartline was on there, and he said, like, who were your top 3 that you've coached? And he said Garrett Wilson was up there. He said he loves Chris Olave, but he gave shout outs to Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
You know who he picked as his best right now?
Marvin Harrison.
Okay, let me take that back. Outside of Marvin Harrison.
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Over Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, but that's not really crazy because Chris and Garrett have come out and said that themselves. We've heard that before.
They both said it, and that's what he literally said that. I don't know if you've seen it, but he literally said that. He said, I feel comfortable saying that because, Garrett and Chris have both said that JSN was, the alpha. I mean, and we saw it in 2021. He was the alpha when Olave and Wilson were there. So, it's a testament. It's crazy.
That's another guy who, I mean, he's obviously our wide receiver 1. Again, one of the few things I wouldn't say that's a little bit more obvious.
Hey, Will Compton. Sorry, I wanted to say that. Will Compton. That's who it was.
Okay, yeah, I know. I follow him on Twitter. Yeah, I like him.
I felt like an asshole because I love their show, man. So I was like, let me make sure that I get Will Compton.
No, he's a fun follow on Twitter. Yeah. He tweets some really funny shit.
Fucking hilarious.
But Jackson Smith and Jigba. Speaking of the guy that we were talking about earlier, he reminds me a lot of CeeDee Lamb when I'm talking about comps. He's a guy that's probably going to live out the slot, but I think he'll be able to develop enough. And yeah, he's kind of similar in the speed wise because CeeDee Lamb, a lot of people, I don't know if you don't remember, wasn't a burner. He was 4.5, so it's solid. That's exactly what Jackson Smith and Jigba was. So I think he can really fit that CeeDee Lamb mold to someone who's going to live out the slot, but is still going to be a wide receiver 1 and can be versatile enough to where you can line him up on the outside if you need him, but he's going to make his living outside. I mean, on the inside.
Lamb, 6'2", 200. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 6'1", 200.
On point. There we go.
Ran the 4.55.
I didn't even look that up before. I just right on top of my head.
Yeah.
So,
and you watch them play, and they both are.
They do look very similar. They play very similar.
Their quickness is insane, and they talk about their hands too. So, you know.
So last thing I do want to say though about Garrett Wilson, because we're kind of going on tangents again. But I want to say that he had 130 on a 25% target share, had 139 targets, only 2 drops the entire season. Speaking of his bad quarterback play, man, that is showing your true alpha level potential right there. This guy is going to be a superstar. Try to get him in every single league that you can have. So I did.